Jamal Harris moved through the store with practiced ease, his movements smooth and sure after months of ringing groceries and chatting with familiar faces. The hum of the fluorescent lights above created a gentle buzz that mixed with the soft beeps of barcode scanners and the distant clatter of shopping carts. He wore the standard green polo and name tag, but to him it felt like a comfortable uniform that let him focus on helping people instead of worrying about what to wear. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and every now and then he brushed a hand across his forehead to clear a stray curl. He greeted each customer with a warm, "Hello, how are you today?" even when he was tired or worried about getting home on time. That afternoon, a single customer stirred something different in the air. The store was quieter than usual. Most of the lunch crowd had disappeared, and the midday shoppers trickled in like a slow stream. Jamal glanced up from his task of stacking cans of soup when an elderly man approached his register. The man's cane tapped softly on the floor, and he moved with cautious determination, head tilted slightly downward. Jamal recognized the look. The man was visually impaired. His steps were deliberate, as though he was counting every inch of space before trusting it. "Good afternoon," Jamal said, voice gentle. "Did you find everything you need?" The man paused, his cane swept carefully in front of him. Yes, thank you, son." His voice was rough like gravel, but not unkind. He set down several items one by one, a loaf of bread, a carton of milk, a block of cheese, and a few other necessities. Jamal noticed that the items were simple and practical, nothing extravagant, and thought he must be living on a tight budget or simply keeping life uncomplicated. When the man fumbled with his wallet, fingers searching for the right notes, Jamal leaned forward. He watched as the man counted crumpled bills, occasionally rising numbers to his ear and whispering them. Jamal could see the faint twitch of worry around the man's mouth, the way his lips pressed together when he realized he might not have enough cash. Without hesitation, Jamal slipped the items out of the man's hands and began scanning them himself. "I can ring these up for you," Jamal offered. "No problem at all." The man gave a small, grateful smile, and Jamal felt a soft warmth spread through his chest. He completed the total and helped guide the man's hand as he handed over his money. When the bills still didn't cover the full amount, Jamal quietly bit his lip before extending his own payment card. "Let me cover the rest," he said quietly. "You can pay me back next time if you'd like." The man's surprise was evident in the slight lift of his eyebrows. He shook his head. "I couldn't possibly." "It's no trouble," Jamal said, pressing a button on the card reader. "Just consider it a kindness. We all have days when things don't go as planned." The man's cane tapped in place as he tried to find words. His voice softened. "Thank you, young man. You've done more than you know." Jamal packed the man's groceries into a plastic bag, making sure the milk went on top, and then gently guided him toward the exit. He opened the door for him, and the man paused, taking in the bright sunlight. Jamal squinted as the light hit his eyes, then followed the man outside to the small covered entryway, where rideshares often picked up passengers. "Your car should be here any moment," Jamal said. He pointed to a nearby curb where cars lined up in busier times, though now only one or two were parked. The man nodded, scanning the area with his face barely visible under the brim of his cap. "I don't have anyone to call," the man admitted. "My daughter lives too far away to help every day. And my phone, well, it's hard to use without seeing the screen." Jamal thought for a moment. "Why don't I give you a ride home?" he asked, glancing at the time. He still had 30 minutes left of his shift, and his apartment was only a few blocks from the store. "It's no problem. I finish soon, and I'll make sure you get safely inside." The man hesitated, seeming to weigh Jamal's sincerity. Finally, he nodded. "That would be very kind of you, but I don't want to impose." "You're not imposing," Jamal said with quiet confidence. "Everyone deserves a little help now and then." Back inside the store, Jamal finished his remaining customers, texting his manager that he'd be a few minutes late. He reached into his apron pocket for his keys and followed the man out to the parking lot. The afternoon sun had shifted, casting long shadows across the asphalt. In the silence, only the distant sound of traffic and the occasional bird call broke the calm. As the man settled into the passenger seat of Jamal's small sedan, Jamal asked for an address. The man recited it clearly, and Jamal navigated through neighborhood streets with the GPS ready but eyes on the road. He kept the conversation light, asking if the man lived alone, whether he had pets, or what he liked to eat. The man's name, Jamal learned, was Mr. Lawrence. He lived in a modest townhouse 2 neighborhoods over. He had lost much of his sight to glaucoma a few years ago and learned to manage life carefully, though some days were harder than others. When they arrived, Jamal parked on the street in front of Mr. Lawrence's home. He turned off the engine and walked around to help him out. The man's cane tapped again, this time more confidently. Jamal guided him to the front door, where a friend of Mr. Lawrence's stood waiting, another elderly man who smiled warmly as he recognized the cashier. "Thank you," Mr. Lawrence said softly when Jamal handed him off. "You've done a great service today." Jamal shrugged modestly. "It was nothing," he insisted. "Just part of being human. We look out for each other." Mr. Lawrence's friend shook Jamal's hand firmly. "You're a good man, boy. The world needs more like you." Jamal nodded, feeling a rush of humility. He waved and walked back to his car, sidestepping a low flower bed with care. As he drove away, he thought about the simple act of helping someone in need. He didn't do it for praise or thanks. He did it because it felt right. But in that moment, as the grocery store came back into view, he realized that small kindnesses could ripple outward, touching lives in ways he couldn't yet see. Pulling into the employee parking lot, Jamal glanced at the clock. He was only a few minutes late, and his manager would understand. He parked, took a deep breath, and prepared to finish his shift. The strange feeling in his chest, equal parts satisfaction and anticipation, made him wonder what might come next. But for now, he was content to return to his register, greeting the next customer with the same warm smile, ready to lend a hand or an ear to whoever needed it. A cool breeze drifted in through the sliding glass door of the cafe where Mrs. Evelyn Carter sat nursing her tea. She had spent the last hour watching the cashier at the grocery store down the street, and her mind kept returning to the simple kindness she had witnessed. Evelyn was a woman of measured action. A retired Army colonel now working in Veterans Affairs, she had learned long ago to read people quickly and without judgment. Today, a chance shopping trip had become so much more. Inside the grocer's fluorescent haze, Evelyn had seen a young man, Jamal Harris, notice an elderly gentleman struggling at the register. The man moved with patient care, tapping his cane against the floor and counting bills with the precision of someone whose world was bounded by his remaining senses. When the total exceeded the money he held, the younger man had quietly offered to pay the difference, packing the groceries and guiding the customer outside. It was a small thing, Evelyn thought, yet it carried the weight of decency in a world that often overlooked such moments. Evelyn had watched the interaction unfold from the end of the next aisle. She had chosen a seat in the cafe adjacent to the grocery store precisely so she could observe without intruding. In her uniformed career, she had learned the value of surveillance, though never for anything as personal as this. Yet today she felt compelled to see what would happen next. She saw the cashier drop his own tasks to usher the man out into the bright afternoon light, and she felt a tug in her heart. She sipped her tea, remembering the day her own father had returned from overseas duty with shaded eyes and new limitations. His once steady hands trembled, and he often struggled to do simple tasks. At the time, she had been too young, too caught up in school and childhood pains to fully grasp his pain. But now, decades later, she knew the weight of helplessness. Watching Jamal help the stranger, Evelyn felt a surge of emotion she wasn't used to allowing herself publicly. She closed her eyes, took a steadying breath, and opened her phone. Evelyn scrolled through her contacts until she found the number she needed, one she rarely dialed. As a high-ranking officer, she had kept in touch with an old Army buddy, Major General Robert Lawrence, who had become something of a mentor to her. His own blindness, earned through honorable service, had taught her lessons no textbook ever could. She tapped his number, waited through the rings, and then spoke in a low, urgent tone. Bob, it's Evelyn. You're not going to believe what I saw today. Her words tumbled out. The scene she had witnessed, the selflessness of the young cashier, the gratitude on the older man's face. She paused only to sip her tea, letting the weight of her own memories reinforce the importance of this moment. On the other end, she heard a soft chuckle, her friend's voice carrying curiosity and warmth. Evelyn, you always bring me the interesting stories. Tell me more, he said. He lived a few states away now, working with a team that supported veterans with disabilities. His daughter, too, had blindness, and he had grown used to relying on others' goodwill. Evelyn leaned back in her chair, glancing through the cafe window at the late afternoon sun painting the street a soft gold. This young man didn't just help an older gentleman with his groceries. He paid for the rest when the man didn't have enough money, walked him outside, guided him to a rideshare point. It was simple kindness, but it reminded me of everything we stand for. General, Lawrence was silent for a moment, an acknowledgement of the deep emotion such stories stirred in him. Then he said quietly, "Do you have his name?" "Yes, he's Jamal Harris. He works at the Green Valley Market on Elm Street." Evelyn repeated the details, the time, the items purchased, the way the cashier had spoken gently, made the older man feel safe. "Keep an eye on him," Lawrence said. "I'd like to meet him. There's something special about people who show that kind of heart." Evelyn felt a thrill of purpose. She excused herself verbally, promising to follow up, and ended the call. Her tea had grown cold, but she barely noticed. Gathering her things, she left bills on the table and stepped back into the grocery store, striding toward Jamal's register. Jamal was busy rearranging candy bars when she approached. He looked up, eyebrows slightly raised, and offered a polite smile. Evelyn introduced herself simply. "Colonel Evelyn Carter, I wanted to thank you personally for what you did this afternoon." Jamal blinked in surprise, not quite matching the formality of her rank, but respectful nonetheless. "Oh, it was nothing, ma'am, just did what anyone should do." Evelyn shook her head. "No, not everyone would do that. Not many people look out for strangers with that level of care. I've seen you on my lunch breaks, always polite, always patient, but today you went further." She met his gaze and saw the mix of humility and slight embarrassment. He shrugged. "I just helped someone who needed it." Evelyn studied him for a moment. His green uniform polo was neat, his name tag gleamed, and his hands were steady despite the rush of customers. She pulled a small card from her wallet and handed it to him. "If you ever need anything, advice, support, call this number. General, Lawrence and I would like to invite you to speak at a veterans event. We honor people who show extraordinary kindness, and we want you there." Jamal stared at the card, then back at Evelyn. Words caught in his throat. The line between embarrassment and pride flickered across his face. Finally, he managed, Thank you, Colonel. I'm honored, but I'm not sure I'm that remarkable." Evelyn smiled warmly. "Remarkable or not, you've inspired us, and sometimes people need to hear how simple actions can make a big difference." She patted his shoulder lightly, then turned and walked away, leaving Jamal standing with the small card in his hand. Behind her, the cafe's door swung shut on the afternoon sun. Back at her apartment that evening, Evelyn placed a call to General Lawrence and relayed the encounter. He listened with satisfaction, then said, "We'll arrange something meaningful. Perhaps a small ceremony, maybe a news piece. We'll highlight his kindness and encourage others." Evelyn felt a surge of anticipation. She thought of the ripple effect. One young man's act of generosity, noticed by an unseen witness, amplified by her reach and her friend's influence. It reminded her that leadership wasn't just about orders and strategy. It was about lifting others, shining light on good deeds and fostering hope. Over the next few hours, she made plans. She contacted a local news producer, someone she trusted to tell the story with respect. She arranged a date and time for Jamal to visit the Veterans Center in town, where he could meet others whose lives had been changed by kindness. She prepared talking points emphasizing themes of community, compassion, and shared responsibility. And she thought of Mr. Lawrence, whose gratitude through his daughter would soon touch Jamal in a way he couldn't yet imagine. Before going to bed, Evelyn smiled as she read the little card again. It bore her name, rank, and number in perfect type, a small token of gratitude extended across the space between strangers. She placed it gently on her bedside table. Next, to a photo of her father in uniform. She closed her eyes and felt contentment settle in her chest, certain that tomorrow's actions would carry today's kindness forward. And somewhere in the night, as the city slept, Jamal Harris rested quietly too, unaware of the plans being set in motion on his behalf, but already part of a story larger than he could have known. That story would bring a convoy of respect and honor to his door, and it all began with a humble witness who chose not to look away. Jamal slipped into his uniform shirt the next morning, pulling the green fabric smooth across his shoulders. He felt the gentle weight of the name tag on his chest and thought back to yesterday's quiet shift. A sense of calm settled over him, until he stepped into the parking lot of Green Valley Market and froze. Rows of dusty cars were pushed aside, replaced by dark green Humvees and a large black SUV. The morning chill carried the rumble of engines, and for a moment, Jamal's heart pounded so loud he felt it in his throat. He hurried toward the store entrance, balancing a tote bag of lunch in one hand and his work keys in the other. The automatic doors slid open on a soft whoosh, and he blinked at his manager Lisa, standing near the registers with her phone pressed to her ear. Her face was pale, and she motioned for him to come closer. When he reached her, she hung up without a word and led him toward the back office. "Something's going on," she whispered, voice shaky. "You better see for yourself." She nudged him toward the front of the store. Jamal's legs felt unsteady as he walked past racks of chips and soda, past the frozen foods humming in their glass cases. He noticed that the other employees had paused, some peering through the windows, others gathered in small clumps whispering. At the front, the entrance doors were propped open. Jamal pushed through and gasped. Soldiers in crisp uniforms stood, at attention beside the SUVs. Their boots were polished and their faces were grave in the morning light. A small crowd of customers hovered at the edges of the parking lot, taking pictures with their phones. A news van idled in the corner, its antennae flexing at the top. Jamal's mind raced. Had something happened to the store? Was there an emergency? He drew closer to one of the Humvees and realized the soldiers weren't in combat gear. They wore formal dress uniforms, complete with ribbons on their chests and brass insignia on their collars. Jamal swallowed and looked for his manager again. Lisa appeared at his side, squeezing his arm. "Colonel Carter will see you now," she said. She pointed toward a woman stepping out of the black SUV, Evelyn Carter, wearing a smart olive green uniform with a skirt and heels. Her hair was pulled back in a tight bun, and her posture was straight as a soldier's should be. Despite the crispness of her appearance, her eyes held a warm smile as she caught sight of Jamal. He walked toward her, mind spinning. Colonel Carter extended a hand. "Good morning, Mr. Harris," she said. Her voice was calm, carrying a faint echo of yesterday's kindness. "Thank you for coming out." "Ma'am?" Jamal's voice shook as he dipped his head. Is everything all right?" She gestured behind her. "Please join us." He followed her to where a small table was set up beside the SUV. On it lay a blue box, a certificate in a frame, and a small medal pinned to a navy ribbon. Jamal's pulse raced as he realized this was no accident. Colonel Carter cleared her throat and introduced the man beside her. "Major General Robert Lawrence." The older gentleman stepped forward, his white hair trimmed close, his uniform gleaming in the sunlight. Jamal's breath caught. He recognized the name. Lawrence had spoken with Evelyn the day before, arranged to meet Jamal. Now, here he was, tall and dignified, one hand resting on a ceremonial saber. "Mr. Harris," the general said, voice deep and steady. "I am honored to meet you in person." His gaze was kind, but there was purpose in it. "I am the father of the gentleman you helped yesterday." Jamal's eyes widened. "Your act of generosity meant more than you can imagine. My son-in-law and I spoke at length, and we wanted to show you how much it touched our family. Jamal's mouth went dry. He remembered Mr. Lawrence's grateful smile, the way his cane tapped softly on the floor. I was just helping, he stammered, glancing at the table. I didn't expect anything in return. The general smiled gently. Neither did we, he said. But we believe such actions should be recognized, so that others see that simple kindness can change lives. Colonel Carter stepped forward and produced the framed certificate. She handed it to Jamal, who accepted it with trembling fingers. The certificate read, "In recognition of exceptional compassion and service to fellow citizen, with the seal of the United States Army." Underneath, his name was printed in bold letters. People in the crowd whispered as he held it up, phones clicking. Then Colonel Carter opened the blue box, tilted it, and revealed the medal, a small bronze disc embossed with clasped hands, suspended from a navy ribbon threaded through a brass bar. She pinned it carefully onto Jamal's uniform shirt, just above his name tag. Jamal felt the cool metal settle against his heart, and a rush of emotion flooded him. As she clasped the medal in place, Colonel Carter said, "On behalf of the United States Army and the Lawrence family, I present you this Medal of Civil Service to honor your compassion and dedication." A soldier standing nearby snapped to attention, then offered a crisp salute. Jamal returned it instinctively, though his limbs felt weak. The general spoke again. "Mr. Harris, we would be grateful if you would join us later today at the Veterans Center. We have arranged a small ceremony and would love for you to share your thoughts on service and kindness." He gave Jamal a warm look. "You'll inspire others, I have no doubt." Jamal tried to speak. Words wouldn't come. He nodded, voice hoarse. "I'd be honored." In that moment, a news cameraman stepped forward, microphone in hand. The crowd's chatter grew louder. Colonel Carter gently guided Jamal to stand beside the general. The cameraman asked questions. How did it feel to help Mr. Lawrence? What motivated him to pay for the groceries? What would he say to people watching? Jamal answered simply, honestly. He believed people owed each other basic respect and kindness, that a small gesture could make someone's day, that he hoped others would do the same. After a few minutes, the questions ended. The general shook Jamal's hand again, then posed for photos with him, Colonel Carter, and the soldiers. Jamal managed a small smile. His co-workers emerged from the store, clapping and cheering. Customers waved from the windows. A gentle breeze stirred the ribbons on Colonel Carter's uniform. When the formalities finished, Colonel Carter whispered, "Thank you for your kindness, Mr. Harris. We will see you this afternoon." She led the general back to the SUV, and the soldiers snapped to attention once more. The engine started, and the convoy moved off in precise order, dust swirling behind the Humvees as they rolled away. Jamal watched until the last vehicle turned, onto the street, then stood alone in the empty parking lot, clutching the certificate and medal. He felt a blend of pride and humility wash over him. He remembered guiding Mr. Lawrence to the car, remembered the simple warmth in that man's voice. Now, that same man's daughter and father had come to honor him. Jamal took a deep breath, slid the medal from his shirt pocket, and touched it lightly. He tucked the certificate under his arm and walked back into the store, where Lisa and his co-workers surrounded him with congratulations. "Jamal, that was incredible," one co-worker exclaimed. "I saw you on the news." Lisa placed a hand on his shoulder. "You've made us all proud. Don't be late this afternoon, okay? We want to hear all about it." Jamal nodded, still absorbing everything. He returned to his register and served customers with a steady smile, though his mind was elsewhere. He folded the day's tasks into the back of his mind, waiting for the afternoon when he would speak at the Veterans Center. He wondered what he would say, how he would explain that he had simply done what anyone should, but that somehow that was extraordinary. As the morning rush died down, he glanced at the clock. Soon he would have time to collect his thoughts and prepare. He wiped his hands on his apron and looked around the store, the aisles, the checkout lanes, the coolers. Humming in the back, everything felt familiar, yet changed. In the quiet hum of everyday life, Jamal realized that extraordinary moments could appear out of nowhere, shifting the course of a life as simply as a kind word. He straightened his posture, squared his shoulders, and readied himself for what lay ahead. The simple act that had begun with a visually impaired man and a few items at the register had blossomed into something far larger. And now, Jamal Harris was driven by a new purpose: to honor kindness wherever it appeared, and to show that each of us carries the power to brighten someone's path with the smallest of gestures. Jamal arrived at the Veterans Center just as the late afternoon sun cast long, warm beams through the tall windows of the main hall. He parked his car in the gravel lot behind the building, took a steadying breath, and smoothed his uniform shirt. His medal and framed certificate were carefully tucked into a small bag at his side. He stepped inside and was immediately struck by the soft murmur of conversation. Old friends reconnecting, families greeting one another, laughter mingling with the hum of a small fan in the corner. A long table near the entrance held tablecloths in army green, navy blue, and white. On it sat name tags, programs folded into little triangles, and small American flags standing at attention in glass jars. Volunteers offered him a bottle of water and pointed toward a row of chairs lined up, facing a simple stage. A wooden platform no more than a foot high with a lectern draped in the flag of the United States. A banner overhead read, "Honoring Everyday Heroes." Jamal followed a young woman in a Veterans Center polo to the front row. He recognized Colonel Carter and Major General Lawrence already in place, their uniforms immaculate. A few reporters, with notebooks, hovered near the back. Jamal slid into a chair beside Mr. Lawrence's daughter, Captain Sarah Lawrence, whose gentle smile and poised presence reflected her father's dignity. She whispered a thank you and squeezed his hand, a quiet gesture that sent a warm glow through him. The room quieted as Evelyn Carter stepped forward to the lectern. She tapped the microphone, and her calm, authoritative voice filled the space. "Thank you all for joining us today," she said. "We are here to celebrate a simple act of compassion that became something extraordinary." She gestured toward Jamal, seated in the front row. "Yesterday, Mr. Harris showed us that one kind gesture can touch hearts and inspire a community. Today, we acknowledge his kindness and his willingness to serve, not on a battlefield but in everyday life." Applause rippled through the audience. Jamal stood, awkwardly offered a wave, and then sat again as Colonel Carter introduced the next speaker, Mr. Lawrence. The general's presence seemed to fill the room. He spoke softly, each word chosen with care. "When my father lost his sight, he worried he would lose his independence," he began. "He worried that people would overlook him or see only his disability. But yesterday, a young cashier named Jamal Harris saw only a fellow human being in need. He did not hesitate to guide my father, to pay for his groceries, to show that respect and dignity are not limited by circumstance. For that, we are eternally grateful." Major General Lawrence paused, looking directly at Jamal. "In military service, we learn the value of looking out for one another. We learn to trust, to sacrifice, to stand together. Jamal's actions remind us that the same values we hold, dear in uniform, apply every day and everywhere. He is a civilian, yes, but he embodies the very best of service." The audience rose in applause once again, many wiping eyes or nodding in agreement. Next came the presentation of the scholarship fund. A local community leader, Ms. Rebecca Nguyen, stepped forward. She explained that the Green Valley Community Foundation had established the Jamal Harris Scholarship for Service to support young people pursuing careers in social work, disability advocacy, or community service. The scholarship would award 2 students with financial assistance each year, and Nguyen read the mission statement: "To encourage empathy, responsibility, and action among the next generation." As she spoke, Jamal felt a lump rise in his throat. He had never imagined that his small act might inspire a lasting program to help others. After the scholarship announcement, it was Jamal's turn to speak. He stood and approached the lectern, feeling the cool wood under his fingertips. The room fell silent. He cleared his throat and offered a tentative smile. "Thank you all for being here," he began. His voice was soft, but he found strength in the supportive faces around him. Yesterday I did what any person should do, help someone who needed help. But standing here today I realize that simple kindness can echo far beyond a single moment. He paused, looking around at the veterans, their families, the volunteers. I helped Mr. Lawrence not because I expected anything in return, but because that's how I choose to live. We all have the power to make someone's day a little brighter. It might be paying for a stranger's groceries, offering a seat on the bus, or simply listening when someone needs to talk. Those small gestures matter. Jamal glanced at Captain Lawrence, who smiled and nodded encouragingly. I am honored by your recognition, he continued. This medal, this scholarship, these words, they belong to all of us who believe in caring for one another. I hope that each of you will take a moment every day to look for a chance to help. You never know how much it might mean. He stepped back from the lectern as applause swelled once more. Reporters clicked their pens, and a cameraman panned across the room, capturing the moment. After the formal ceremony, the doors opened onto a courtyard where tables were set up with refreshments, sandwiches, fruit trays, cookies shaped like stars. People mingled under string lights swaying in the gentle breeze. Jamal found himself surrounded by veterans eager to share stories. One woman, who had served as a medic overseas, told him how a small act of kindness from a local family had comforted her squad after a tough patrol. Another veteran, struggling to read mail after an injury to his eyesight, asked Jamal for tips on managing daily tasks and invited him to volunteer at a support group meeting. Major General Lawrence approached Jamal, with his daughter at his side. You did well today, he said, his voice warm. Your words carried honesty and hope. He offered his arm. Would you join us inside for a moment? They entered a side room lined with photographs of veterans in service. The general pointed to a photo of his wife years ago at a gala, honoring disabled veterans. Your story now sits among these images, he said. It reminds me that heroism wears many faces, and sometimes it's a simple act of care. Captain Lawrence stepped forward and hugged Jamal. You've given us so much, she said. Thank you. Tears glimmered in her eyes. Jamal felt tears well in his own, touched by the genuine gratitude. Journalists peppered him with questions. What advice did he have for others? How did he feel receiving military honors? Would he consider working in veteran services or advocacy? Jamal answered thoughtfully. He encouraged people to start small, to look for moments to help, and to remember that caring for one another enriches us all. He admitted he had never planned to speak publicly, but he was glad to share the message. As evening approached, the center's director invited everyone to gather for a group photo. Jamal stood in the middle, holding the scholarship plaque alongside Colonel Carter and Major General Lawrence. Volunteers adjusted the flags, and a flash captured the image of unity across generations and backgrounds. When the crowd dispersed, Jamal lingered in the now quiet hall. He walked up to the lectern and traced a finger along the worn wood. He thought of Mr. Lawrence's trusting smile, Colonel Carter's determined kindness, and the faces of veterans who had welcomed him. He felt a deep sense of belonging. His life as a cashier at a grocery store had shifted in an instant into something richer and more profound. Outside, under the glow of porch lights on the center's front steps, Jamal paused before heading home. He looked up at the stars just beginning to show, and promised himself he would continue helping others in whatever way he could. He knew that tomorrow he would return to the grocery store, scan groceries, greet customers, and offer a listening ear. But he would do so with a new understanding. That every small act of kindness had the power to change lives, inspire action, and build a more caring community. With a contented sigh, he walked to his car, carrying with him the memory of a day when one simple kindness had become a beacon of hope for many. Jamal woke the next morning before his alarm, sunlight slipping through the thin curtains of his small apartment. He lay for a moment, listening to the quiet hum of the city waking up. The events of the previous day still felt like a dream, being on that stage, speaking to veterans, seeing their faces light up with recognition. But now it was time to return to everyday life. He dressed in his usual green polo and black slacks, the medal tucked safely into a small box on his bedside table. He planned to save it for special occasions, but today he wore only the subtle weight of gratitude in his heart. As he prepared a simple breakfast of scrambled eggs and toast, he thought about the visits he would make that day, checking in with Mr. Lawrence's daughter to finalize the scholarship details, stopping by the community college to speak with eager students about applying, and of course working his shift at Green Valley Market. On his way out, Jamal paused at the photo of his mother on the bookshelf. She had encouraged him to be kind to everyone, always saying, "One small act can change someone's path." He smiled at her picture, as if she were there beside him. Then he grabbed his bag, locked the door, and headed down the hallway. At the community college, Jamal met with Ms. Angela Ruiz, the advisor for the new Jamal Harris Scholarship for Service. They sat in a sunny office, walls lined with posters of students volunteering at food banks and tutoring younger children. Angela had a warm smile and spoke with enthusiasm. "Mr. Harris, we're so excited about this program," she said, tapping on her laptop to show him the scholarship webpage. It listed the eligibility criteria: students with financial need who had completed at least 50 hours of community service in fields like disability advocacy, social work, or veterans support. The application deadline was set for September 30th, giving students the summer to prepare essays and recommendation letters. Jamal reviewed the details. He felt a sense of pride seeing his name attached to something so meaningful. "This looks great," he said. "I especially like that students can propose projects of their own. It lets them shape their service to the community." Angela nodded. "Exactly. We want to encourage creativity and commitment, and we're planning workshops to help applicants write strong essays." She handed him a flyer with dates and times. "If you're available, we'd love for you to speak at one of these workshops." Jamal agreed. He was already imagining students' faces. Young people from different backgrounds eager to make a difference but unsure how. He thought back to when he was their age, working part-time jobs and dreaming of a career that mattered. Now, he could show them that paying attention to others was just as important as any degree. After they finalized a date for the workshop, August 12th, Jamal thanked Angela and left the college. As he walked to his car, he noticed a group of students carrying backpacks and chatting animatedly. Some waved when they saw his university sweatshirt, and he returned their smiles. The scholarship felt real now, no longer an abstract idea, but a lifeline for someone's future. Later that afternoon, Jamal stopped by Mr. Lawrence's house to return the little box that held the medal. He knocked on the door and heard a familiar rasp of movement. When the door opened, Captain Sarah Lawrence stood there, her gentle brightness unchanged since the ceremony. "Mr. Harris," she said, stepping aside to let him in. "Come on in." Jamal entered the cozy living room, filled with comfortable chairs and shelves of books. Photos of family and service lined the mantel. Sarah led him to a side table where a small envelope waited. "This is for you," she said. Inside was an invitation: the Lawrence Family Annual Picnic, July 4th, 2025. It promised food, games, and a chance to celebrate community under the stars. "We'd be honored if you joined us," she said. "You've become part of our family story." Jamal felt a warmth in his chest. "I'd love to come," he replied. "Thank you." They talked for a while longer, about course schedules, about ways he could volunteer at the Veterans Center, about how Sarah's sister was organizing a neighborhood drive for canned goods. Jamal offered to help with that too, thinking it would be a good way to connect with neighbors and continue spreading kindness. When he finally left, he waved goodbye and walked back into the mid-afternoon sun. His schedule was filling up with ways to give back, in addition to his regular work at the grocery store. He felt energized by the possibilities. That evening, Jamal returned to Green Valley Market for his shift. The store was calm, prepped for the dinner rush. He clocked in, greeted his manager, Lisa, and took his place at Register 3. His co-workers clustered around him, eager to hear about his day. He told them about the scholarship meeting, about the picnic invitation, and about the workshop at the college. "Man, you're going to be busy," one co-worker teased. "Don't forget us when you're famous." Jamal laughed. I'll always be here for you, he promised, scanning items and handing customers their receipts. Throughout the shift, he noticed people pause when they recognized him from the news segment. Some offered congratulations, others just smiled. He felt that same gentle warmth he had felt all week. During a lull, a familiar figure approached, Mr. Lawrence's friend from the day of the grocery run. The older man tapped his cane on the floor as he moved toward the register. Jamal smiled. "Hello again." The man tugged at his cap. "I just wanted to say thank you again," he said softly. "You don't know how much that help meant. My friend there," he nodded toward a neighbor. "He's getting me groceries now, thanks to you showing us how to ask." He chuckled. "You started a chain reaction." Jamal's smile widened. "I'm glad," he said. "We all need a hand sometimes." The man paid for his groceries and left with a grateful nod. As he walked away, Jamal felt the truth of what he was doing sink in. Every small act mattered, and it spread further than he could see. The next weekend arrived with anticipation. Jamal drove to the Veterans Center, where games and picnic tables were set up on the lawn. The Lawrence family picnic was in full swing. Red, white, and blue decorations fluttered in the breeze, and families mingled under a canopy of trees. He spotted Colonel Carter greeting guests by the entrance, and Major General Lawrence by the barbecue grill, flipping burgers with a grin. Nearby, Captain Sarah Lawrence directed a wheelbarrow race for children. "Jamal," Sarah called, waving him over. She handed him a plate loaded with food, grilled chicken, potato salad, and slices of watermelon. He found a spot under a large oak tree and joined several veterans and their families. They passed the plate around and shared stories of 4th of July celebrations past. At one point, Colonel Carter approached and offered him a glass of lemonade. "Thank you for coming," she said, her eyes warm behind her sunglasses. "It means a lot to my father and me." "It's my pleasure," Jamal replied. "I feel like part of the family already." Major General Lawrence ambled over, sausage in hand. "How are you enjoying the day?" he asked, settling beside Jamal. "Good food, good company. Best picnic I've ever been to," Jamal said, taking a bite of chicken. They laughed together, the general's hearty chuckle echoing across the lawn. As the afternoon faded into evening, they gathered for a barbecue and fireworks rehearsal. Children ran around with sparklers, and people chatted about the coming display. Jamal helped Sarah organize the dessert table, arranging pies and cupcakes in neat rows. When the fireworks began, bright bursts of color exploding overhead, Jamal stood among the families, looking up in awe. He thought of his mother's words again. One small act can change someone's path. He realized that kindness could create ripples strong enough to light up the sky. In the days that followed, Jamal settled into his new rhythm. He balanced work at the grocery store with speaking engagements and volunteer shifts at the Veterans Center. He led the scholarship workshop at the college, where a dozen students nodded eagerly at his advice. He volunteered at the food drive, helping neighbors fill boxes with canned goods. He even found time to meet with local reporters, sharing stories of everyday heroes doing selfless acts in the community. Through it all, he remained grounded. Every morning he still woke up before his alarm, sharing a simple breakfast and a moment of gratitude before stepping into his green polo. Every day, he reminded himself that he was no different from anyone else. He simply chose to notice people's needs and act. One evening, after a long day of work and meetings, Jamal sat on the small porch of his apartment. He held a cup of tea and watched the sun set. He thought about the journey he had taken, from a regular cashier aiding an unseen customer to a celebrated community figure inspiring a scholarship and hosting veterans at a family picnic. Yet nothing about him had changed at the core. He was still the same compassionate person who saw a man struggling and decided to help. He closed his eyes and whispered a quiet promise to himself: to keep looking for chances to serve, to keep listening to stories, and to keep offering a hand. And to remember that even the smallest gesture, a helping hand, a kind word, a smile, could change a life and build a stronger community. With that, Jamal took a deep breath, sipped his tea, and allowed the cool night air to fill him with peace. Ahead lay new days, new opportunities, and countless chances to show that kindness matters. One person, one moment at a time.